Sup, guys? Getting back into the swing of things. College football. I said I was going to do this video. I know it's kind of last minute, although I already gave you my one play for college football week 0. We have way fewer games in this week 0 than I remember there being in the last couple of seasons. I remember there being like 7 or so games in week 0 the last couple of seasons with actual FBS teams. This year, there's only 2 games between FBS teams. There are 2 other FBS teams playing, and then there's 1 game that's just FCS. I'm going to talk about 3 of the games. Let's get right into it, man. And we're going to get right into it with my play right off the bat, actually. Looking at the board here. Oh, no, do I have to zoom in again? I'm out of practice here with this. Yeah, let's zoom in a little bit so we can see this here. I'm looking at this college football board here. Can we see this now? Yeah, that looks all right, I think, right? All right. So we have Florida State, Georgia Tech. This is the game that I'm on, as you know, if you've been following me. This game is in Ireland, and it's at noon Eastern, so it's up in 3 hours. Florida State down from 12.5 to 10.5. I still like it at taking Georgia Tech plus 10.5, man. That or a better number, I think, is fine. There's not much of a difference between 10.5, 11.5. It was sitting at 11.5 when I gave it out on the show a couple days ago. You can see here 62% of the tickets on Florida State, 61% of the cash. So it looks like there is reverse line movement against a public Florida State team and a little bit less of the cash than the tickets. So those are some indicators that I like to look at there. So I'm going to take that as market agreement with me, and I'm going to be on this Georgia Tech side. I have it at 11. I actually took it at 13.5 because ESPN Bet Massachusetts put up a real bad number on it. I don't know why that was the case, but I'm scoring it at 11.5 on the show because that's what I gave it out as. If we look over at this actual game here, just to have some visuals up for no other reason other than to have the visuals up. Yeah, so one of the reasons why I like this game so much is that Florida State, man, even though they're obviously going to be extremely public, they're the 10th ranked team in the country. They're always a loaded, stacked team, loaded with talent. So the public's always going to be on them. But they lost basically all of their talent from last year, man. They had, I think, at least 10 players drafted into the NFL draft. And we do remember, people are just kind of forgetting about the bowl game that they had where they just got absolutely thrashed by Georgia. But that was a game where Florida State was in that spot where they had missed out on the playoffs. I think they had done everything right? I think, did they win the ACC championship? I think they did. And then they still got left out because Jordan Travis, their star quarterback, was hurt. So they were just left out of the playoffs completely. And then their guys just said, screw this. We're not going to play in this bowl game, even though it was one of the big New Year's 6 bowls, I'm pretty sure. They would have gotten to have faced Georgia, but they were just like, screw that. We're just not going to do that. A bunch of their players just decided to not play in the game. We're going to stay healthy. We're going to enter the NFL draft. And they lost a lot of players to the draft, man. Jordan Travis, I believe he got drafted to the New York Jets. Their running back, Benson, I think is his name, got drafted to Arizona, the Cardinals, so he's gone. I think their top 2 wide receivers both got drafted, one to the Eagles, and I forget where the other one went. So they have lost basically their entire offensive core from last year. This Florida State team is only returning 5 starters on offense and 5 starters on defense. So that is not a lot. So there's a lot of turnover here. So that's part of the reason why I like this. I mean, even though they are going to be a talented team, they are going to be a team that is certainly loaded because they are Florida State. They're a big name. They have good recruiting. But you don't tend to gel right away, man, in week 0. And you're going across the pond and playing in Ireland week 0, playing against an inferior Georgia Tech team. Are you really going to be that, not only that focused, but are you really going to be like gelling right out of the gate like that with all these new components? I tend to think no, and you're having to lay a big price if you want Florida State here. So we don't need Georgia Tech to win the game. We only need them to play competitively and wind up covering this number and stay in the game. And I think that is certainly possible with, I think, Florida State having to readjust to all these new guys, get this chemistry built up. Florida State brought in They did bring in a couple of transfers to stack their offense, to reload it through the transfer portal. So they brought in some running back from Alabama who is going to be good, no question about that. And they brought in Ukulele, a guy who I make fun of on the show a lot for his name because he's the fat man's guitar instrument that I like to play. Ukulele. It feels like he's been in college football forever with all the new rules and transfer portals and extra years and red shirts and all that stuff piling up. You can play like 6-7 years. I don't even know how many years he's been, maybe 4 or 5. He was on Clemson back in the day, and well, another ACC powerhouse, Clemson and Florida State, and he did not do very well in Clemson, so that tends to be a strike against him as well. I would say being in the ACC on a real contender like that, like a contending program like that, seemed to affect him a little bit. Maybe he just wasn't used to playing college football yet. Maybe he got better as he kept playing, sure. But he seemed to struggle and kind of struggle under the pressure of being at a big program. So is that going to be in play here? I think maybe that could be an issue for Ukulele here. I don't know. We'll have to see. But that doesn't exactly bode well for him. The fact that he didn't do well when he was on Clemson, the other ACC powerhouse, and then the last year or two, I think, or maybe just last year, he was out in the Pac-12 on Oregon State, and he did do better. He wasn't great, really, though. Like, I don't think he ever really lived up to this, like, hype that he had, so I don't know. I don't think he's as good as Jordan Travis. I think this offense will be good nonetheless, but, again, you got new faces coming in. They have to adjust to playing with each other. They have to adjust to a new coach's program, a coach that they haven't played under before. So there's a lot of factors here where that's something that it takes like a couple weeks to really start gelling. And I don't think it's going to happen right out of the gate in an Ireland game in a weird environment in week 0. That is what I think. Whereas Georgia Tech is more prepared to just be boom right out of the gate because Georgia Tech is returning a lot of starters, man. They're returning, I think, 14 starters, maybe more than that. It might be 16. They're returning a lot of their core from last year. They have their running back is back. I think their top multiple wide receivers are all back, and their dual threat quarterback is back. And this is an offense that has flown under the radar, man, because Georgia Tech's defense has been so bad, and that is an issue. Although they are returning all these guys, so maybe these guys will start getting better as if they have a year under their belt. But their defense is not good, but their offense is actually surprisingly good. A lot of people don't realize that, like I said, because they didn't play that well because their defense was horrible. But their offense is good. Their quarterback, I forget what the dude's name is. What is his name? I don't even remember. King. And then, Haynes is their running back. And then, they have all these different wide receivers who are getting in the mix last year. And I think most, if not all, of those guys are back this year. But, King, their quarterback, he's a dual threat quarterback, man. Florida State, I don't know if you can take much away. I would have to look back and see how many dual threat quarterbacks they really faced last year. But I know that they did face one in the, or no, wait, what am I saying? I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. I'd have to go look and see how many dual threat quarterbacks they actually faced. I was thinking of the next game I'm going to talk about with SMU and Nevada. So never mind about that. But Georgia Tech does have an offense that I think is going to be off to the races and already has chemistry and a year or multiple years in some cases under their belt with these same guys. So Georgia Tech. So in these opening weeks of college football, you do want to look for. You can tend to find some value with teams that are the lesser team, but they have all these guys returning and they already have the chemistry built up. And in those early weeks, that first game, that matters a lot. And you can tend to find teams that are really good programs like Florida State that have a lot of new faces and they've reloaded, and it usually takes a little while for that team to gel. So I do like Georgia Tech here. I think their offense should be able to score with Florida State, even though Florida State does certainly have a talented defense as well, so they could help keep Georgia Tech down. But that might mean it could be a lower scoring game potentially, and then the playing the plus 11.5 also is decent. If it's a low scoring game, the points are worth more. As I always say about that, if it's a lower scoring game, those points are going to tend to come into play more often. And this is not a high total for a college football game, really. 55, that's kind of like an average total. I don't think we're expecting a whole lot of high scoring games in week 0 of college football. So that's the play. And then I was thinking Georgia Tech is a program that actually does have experience playing in Ireland too, but I looked and it was I thought it was more recent than it was. They played one Ireland game back in 2016, so I don't think that's going to really matter. We have coaches here. Neither coach has coached in an Ireland game before, I don't think. I don't think any of these players have played in Ireland games before, so I think that's all just kind of thrown out the window as far as which team has like more experience going over to play in Ireland. And it is week 0, so you didn't play the previous week, so there's kind of less of an issue there with, we need to adjust in like a quick turnaround time. I think there's a little bit less of that. But then after this game, you might tend to want to look maybe to go against one or both of these teams next week, coming out of if they don't have a bye. I don't know if they have a bye, or they probably don't in week 1. So maybe that travel spot might come into play in the next game after they have to travel back. But Georgia Tech plus 11.5, it's mostly due to the fact that their team is basically completely intact from last year, and I think they're set to already have that chemistry built up. So that's why I like Georgia Tech here. That's going to be that play. And we'll talk about these other games here real quickly before I get out of here, and I have to go and do my base. I haven't even looked at baseball yet, to be honest. I have to go do that video. All right, looking at these other games real quick, I'm only going to talk about the next 2, really. I don't think we care about this late night game or well, actually, we have a few different FCS games today. There are 3 more. I thought there was just 1, but there are 3. I don't really care about those. I think those are all FCS. All right, SMU Nevada is the other FBS game, and SMU, this line has been all over the place. It looks like they opened minus 20.5. They went up to minus 27 or so, came down in the middle of the week to like 24.5, and now it's back up to 27.5. I don't know what to think about that. It seems like there might be differing opinions on this game, maybe on the side where, because the line just keeps bouncing back and forth like kind of like a roller coaster. It keeps seesawing, so I don't know what to think about that. You can see the tickets are on SMU. I mean, everybody knows SMU is the better program right now. Nevada is down in the dumps, and I think it's going to take them a while to really rebuild. And the odds makers obviously are telling you that, with SMU being a massive road favorite here. 67% of the tickets are on SMU, 61% of the cash on the Nevada side. I don't like the Nevada side anywhere near as much as I like Georgia Tech. I mean, SMU, they do have a decent amount of returning starters. I think they're bringing back like their core pieces, but where they are not bringing back players are on their offensive and defensive line. So that could be the thing that comes into play here. SMU is having to reload on both offensive and defensive lines. So they might struggle a little bit in the trenches, but against a Nevada team that's basically inferior at every single position, I don't know if that's going to really matter that much. SMU is bringing back like quarterback, running back, I think wide receivers. They're bringing back all these other guys and some of their other defensive players. So I don't think it's going to be that much of an issue, but you're asking them to cover a huge number on the road, although Nevada was not good when facing large spreads as an underdog last year, and maybe the last couple years. They've been pretty bad in that role, and they just really don't have a whole lot of talent right now, so I don't know what we're going to expect out of this. Nevada does – I don't think we even know who their starting quarterback is going to be, actually. I think Nevada, their starting quarterback could be this guy who's a dual threat, which this is what I was thinking of, the dual threat thing, because SMU faced a dual threat quarterback, notably in the Fenway Wasabi Bowl up here in Boston last year. They had some trouble with Castellanos on Boston College, BC, but that was just a bowl game that I don't think SMU really wanted to be there in the Wasabi Bowl. BC got to kind of play in front of a home crowd and play in Fenway, so I think they were more excited to be there as a lesser program. SMU struggled in that game. It was kind of cold weather and it was rainy, which tends to be the case in every one of these Fenway Bowls. I think we've had a couple of them now, and that always is the weather there. So SMU did not. I don't think they put in like their best effort in that one, so I don't know if there's anything you could really take away from that. So if Nevada does go with, I forget the guy's name, this dual threat guy, I don't think that's going to matter that much. And I think Nevada does also have Brock Purdy's brother. Maybe I can look at this real quick. I think that they do. Nevada football. Let me see here. I think they have Brock Purdy's brother on their team, but maybe I'm wrong about that. Let me see. Yeah, Chubba Purdy. Brendan Lewis is the dual threat quarterback. Chubba Purdy. I don't know if he's going to be a guy who's getting into the mix at all. Who knows? But whatever the case may be, there's not much that I think you can take away from this game. I just figured I'd comment on it. And then I think the other game here is a little bit more interesting because of the line. This Montana State, New Mexico game. This is interesting. You got Montana State open 9.5, and they're up to 13 now with 67% of the tickets on them, which kind of surprises me, and 67% of the cash. I would not expect the public to be on them as much as they are, but maybe they just know what the deal is here, because you look at this line and you think, what's going on here? Because Montana State is an FCS team, and they're favored against an FBS football team. The odds makers are telling you, yeah, Montana State is actually the better team. So that line, I would think that the public would actually not be on Montana State as much because they may not realize that, but I guess I'm wrong. Maybe they do realize it, or maybe they just know how bad New Mexico is, and maybe they were following FCS a little bit, because Montana State has been like in the playoffs. They've been making like runs towards the FCS championship the last couple of seasons. I think they were in the championship game once, and then last year I think they got knocked out in the semifinals or something. So they're good. They're one of the best FCS teams, and New Mexico is one of the bottom FBS teams, which is why the line is like this. So the line might look misleading, but that 9.5 is really shot up. I don't think there's any value to be had laying 13 with juice at this point with or actually, I guess they're only still at minus 110, but I don't think there's that much value at this point. I think if you lay the 9.5, then you're looking pretty good, obviously, because you got the best in the number. But aside from that, I would not want to lay this many points, especially on the road. Even though Montana State is bringing back a lot of those key players that they have, they're still going to be good again, one of the best FCS teams again, whereas New Mexico, I think, is going to continue to struggle, even though I think New Mexico did bring in Bronco Mendenhall, former coach from BYU, and I don't know, we'll see what he can do there, but I don't really know if he's going to be able to do a whole lot, to be honest, with a roster that just isn't really that good. So I just figured I'd comment on it because it's an interesting line, but I think I don't really have a lean on either of these two other games, really, but it's just interesting that I would have had the lean on Montana State originally at the 9.5 maybe before I realized that they were also going to be public, because it just looks like such a mind fuck of a line, basically, with an FCS team being favored that heavily against an FBS team. But that is the way that it is, and it seems like the public is aware of what these teams actually are. And then, of course, we have this night game. I mean, who's going to watch this at midnight? So it's actually it's a whatever time that would be. It's a night game, I guess, out in Hawaii. I guess it's like a 7 p.m. Hawaii start time or something, where it's midnight over here Eastern time. Delaware State, one of the worst, even for an FCS team, they're not good. They're just terrible. I think they won one game last year. Maybe it was against a D2 school. I don't know, but they're up against Hawaii, and Hawaii is up from minus 38.5 to minus 40. Tickets look like they're evenly split. The public probably doesn't know what to do with this game. They probably think 40 is just ridiculous, with Hawaii not necessarily really being that good either, but 59% of the cash on Hawaii. I think Hawaii might improve a little bit. I don't know. I mean, this line is just so insane. I never want to get involved in a line that is like this. I usually don't want to play lines that are in the 20s, let alone a line that's 40. I mean, the odds makers are telling you Hawaii should completely dominate this game, and then it's only a question of, is Hawaii going to take their foot off the gas or not? And in week 0 at home with a team that's been struggling the last couple of years, maybe they won't take their foot off the gas because they can showcase themselves in this game and really stick it to a much inferior Delaware State team. I don't know. But that's going to do it, man. The one play, as we know, Georgia Tech plus 11.5. That's going to do it for me, man. Have a good one. I'm going to post this baseball video and I guess talk about NFL preseason real quickly in a little bit. Peace.